Hello and welcome back to my channel, Mr. Sensible, and a special big welcome to all the newer subscribers. Thank you very much, it's much appreciated. Today we're going to look at a video I watched a couple of nights ago of Mr. Nathan Oakley. Mr. Nathan Oakley, who I'm sure you have all heard of, runs a daily live stream debate, perhaps a mass debate, I'm not sure, about the flat earth. They don't tend to win their arguments by logic and actually proving provided evidence is wrong. Rather, they tend to shout over and mute the other party or even totally ignore what they say. On this occasion, there was a user called Randall who provided some evidence for the round earth being photographs taken from space. Now, this was questioned due to gas pressure, and that you can't have pressure next to a vacuum, therefore space doesn't exist, therefore the photographs are fake. Okay, fair enough. Sounds like cobblers to me, but there's an argument. But the way the argument developed, I think you just need to watch. I have snipped out the silences between different people's comments, because otherwise you're just listening to gaps while the live stream takes place. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this.
So they have seen satellites being launched from the space shuttle, for example, and then the same stream or in the same launch, for example, they've said, and here's a picture of the Earth. This is a real non-CGI picture of the Earth.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I've seen pictures of helium balloons launching satellites. ISS is a light in the sky, it could be anything. And we have a issue with the medium of outer space. You can't have gas pressure without a container. So where they say there are, they can't be. So why would I even go there?
Well, we have to at least investigate it, because they claim that this is a picture of the Earth and here is curve, right? So we have to, number one, disprove that picture, or number two, at least look into their claim and say, are they actually saying that this is a photo of the curve of the Earth, which they do, right?
Sorry to interrupt.
I'm so glad you said that, Brandon.
Sorry to interrupt. That's not what he's just put to you, Randall.
And here comes Mr. Nathan Oakley.
He's just debunked the medium that the pictures come from. He's debunking the medium that the pictures are claimed to come from.
Depends on what method you use to debunk the medium.
He used the natural law.
What do you mean? Can you say more?
Over to you, 10th man.
Yeah, you're saying that they're out there in space taking this picture of the blue marble Earth, when we know that gas pressure cannot exist without a container. So how in the world are they out in the vacuum of space with gas pressure underneath them without a membrane?
Debunked flat earth argument number 17B.
How do we know that the Earth can have an atmosphere and there can't be, and there cannot be a vacuum outside of that atmosphere?
Well, that's easy to answer, because in this world, this natural world we live in, you cannot have gas pressure without a container. It's got to have something pressing against the walls of something to have pressure.
How do you know that? And how does that apply to the Earth?
Well, how do I know that is a zillion examples. A scuba diver with oxygen in a tank underwater needs it.
Please note that this example of a scuba diver in a tank was not provided by Randall, but the arguer for a flat earth. More later.
All kinds of examples like that, and I'm on the Earth. It's a natural world. Natural laws apply. Can't have gas pressure without a container. Second law of thermodynamics, heat to cold.
Well, what you said, but then the example that you gave, or the couple of examples that you gave, one of them was really interesting with a scuba diver, right? So like it's pretty obvious that you can't have a gas pressure without a tank of like 150 psi, right? How do we know that that applies at a planetary scale, that we couldn't have, say the psi that we live in at, or at sea level and it grades up to 0, which we do observe the gradient, right?
Sorry to
how do you
interrupt.
know
And here's Nathan again, ready to pounce.
that
I'm really sorry
grade
to
doesn't-
interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. You gave a term. Can you just explain what the term was? What was it? PS what? Sorry?
P.S. What? You know damn well what he said, Nathan. Well, either that, or you really must be exhibiting a whole new level of dumb if you've never heard of PSI. But I'm sure you have.
PSI, pounds per square inch.
Oh, square inch of what?
And here we go, ready to set up the straw man. Square inch of what?
Of any measurement that you take.
Square inch of what, sorry?
Of any measurement that you take.
And what are we measuring the square inch of exactly?
Of anything that you want to measure the pounds per
Well,
square
in this
inch of.
instance, pounds per square inch, a measurement of pressure. What's the square inch that we're going to be measuring exactly, please?
You can measure a square inch like sitting out at 30,000 feet.
Of what?
If you're in a
Of
airplane,
what?
or you can take a.
I'm
excuse me?
sorry, of what? What are we measuring? I'm not measuring the square inch value of thin air now, am I? I'd like to know what precisely in a PSI value the square inch refers to. What's it referring to? So in your scuba diver example, for instance, what would the per inch measurement be referring to in that?
It would be referring to the pressure per square inch inside of that container.
And Randall is absolutely correct. 150 psi within the air tank that the scuba diver has. Unfortunately, that's just what Nathan wanted him to say.
Oh, really? So to have a per inch, you'd need a container then to press on?
Not necessarily. Not
Sorry,
necessarily.
we've just established that that's absolutely and unequivocally the case. It's part of the bloody measurement.
And there we go, straw man deployed. Yes, the 150 psi is the pounds per square inch pressure within that tank. But you can measure pressure all over the place. The pressure at sea level, the pressure at the top of Everest. That is the pressure of the air pressing on me, you, your sandwiches, whatever it is. It's not just anything to do with containers.
The per inch of the tank that the gas is going to press upon. So to have a PSI, you need the I bit, don't you, sir?
Yes, sir.
And Randall, being decent and honest, confirms you need the inch of something. So if you're stood out on the beach at sea level, your body is encountering 14.7 pounds per square inch of your body. There is no container. Or do you live in a vacuum?
Okay, so 10th man has demolished you. Your very measurement that you've given that we're going to be using includes the necessary antecedent of a container.
The argument is not demolished, and you don't need a container. You just need a square inch of something to measure the pressure on.
To press upon, to get the per inch value. So to answer your question in the way 10th man did, you just go outside, experience gas pressure and know instinctively that it's got a per inch to press upon. It's part of the measurement.
If that were the explanation, then that doesn't explain 8 or 9 other phenomena that we actually experience, which are, so for example, gas pressure gradients.
Oh, that's a straw man.
No, it isn't. I'm sure you actually know what straw men look like, Nathan.
A gas pressure gradient will also have a PSI value, won't it?
It will have a PSI value.
Right, so we're definitely going to need a per inch of something again then. So this gradient nonsense doesn't overcome 10th man's debunking of your assertion that we have pictures from an area claimed to be a vacuum, which can't possibly exist. It's like Narnia, because we have gas pressure. We experience gas pressure, and gas pressure needs to press. According to the fundies that take those pictures, they're out in a realm where there is no thing to press upon. Well, that's nonsense. It violates a natural law.
Stand at the bottom of a mountain. Take the gas pressure that's pressing on your hairy arse. Work your way up the mountain. Keep taking gas pressure measurements per square inch of your arse. By the time you get to the top, that gas pressure will have dropped. It's a gradient. Again, no container, just square inches of Oakley's arse.
So do you have any further rebuttal to that, other than to ask us about natural laws and why they might not apply to your fundy, let's get the wording correct, planetary system, correct? You're begging the question of planets. Why wouldn't apply to your begging the question fallacy? We're not interested. It's a natural law. It's not been violated. Ever. Let me just end this.
Hello.
A gas pressure gradient also has a PSI value, doesn't it? I already smashed this into the middle of next week, didn't I?
Not so much. You either choose to ignore it or you just really don't understand.
You just didn't listen or acknowledge what I stated. So I hadn't finished repeating what you didn't understand or acknowledge, so don't interrupt me.
And Nathan's starting to get close to trigger mode.
Just listen and acknowledge at the end what I've said now for the third time. A gradient will still have a PSI value, and the per inch as established by you is the necessary antecedent to have gas pressure. So even though you've brought in this straw man of a gas pressure gradient...
No straw man. Otherwise, why do climbers up Everest require oxygen tanks?
It does not alter that the medium you're claiming these pictures come from is fake. It cannot possibly exist, and the reason has been made clear. Your fundamentalist belief about planets involves a violation of a law of nature. A law of nature that holds true always. If it didn't, it would not be a natural law. So your pictures that you claim of curve come from a fake medium, debunked by the second law of thermodynamics and Boyle's law. Boyle's law specifically referring to the container.
Boyle's law doesn't say that you have to have a container. What it says is, quote, for a fixed amount of an ideal gas kept at a fixed temperature, pressure and volume are inversely proportional. Or, if you want the modern version of it, the absolute pressure exerted by a given mass of an ideal gas is inversely proportional to the volume it occupies if the temperature and amount of gas remain unchanged within a closed system. So basically, if you want to change the volume a fixed amount of gas occupies, its pressure will increase. So if you've got the gas at a high pressure than the surrounding air, of course it's going to have to be in a container. And the same is if you expand the container with the fixed amount of gas, it will be a lower pressure. You can't have that sort of adjustment in pressure compared to the surrounding ground level air pressure without a container, because otherwise it will just dissipate. But gas itself can have different pressures because it occupies larger or smaller volumes without containers, such as weather systems, high pressure weather systems, low pressure weather systems. A given volume of air in this case, it is changed for a fixed amount of gas. No containers.
And your PSI value that you'll measure your strawman gradient also has an I in it. PSI, per inch of the container.
For crying out loud, Nathan, are you in a container? You are currently experiencing 14.7 pounds per square inch air pressure. If you're not, you're dead.
Now, you don't have a container in this scenario where people fly out to a second law of thermodynamics violations to take pictures from a region you've never been to and cannot confirm, and is a violation of two natural laws. So let's just summarise. You cannot demonstrate a violation of this violation of a natural law other than your fundy belief in what planets do. And you're asking us how we have discounted the idea that your fundy belief in a planet should work.
Makes sense, right?
And up pops Arwen, Nathan's knowledge-challenged little lapdog.
No, it's a natural law.
No, that
It makes sense to them. Doesn't make any sense to anyone else, though.
So the medium that these photos come from is bunk.
you have not proven that.
What part of natural law didn't you understand? What part of PSI didn't you understand? What part of you need a container to have gas pressure didn't you understand? What part of we do have gas pressure, but your fundamentalist sphere belief relies on there being a vacuum next to gas pressure in order to attain these photos? I've not only debunked this, 10th man initially, I'm just reiterating exactly what he said when you started going around in circles. Yeah? This has been absolutely smashed into the middle of next week. In order to have the very gas pressure you are breathing...
Yes, we're breathing gas at pressure, but we're not in containers. Oh my goodness.
The thing you're going to measure with a PSI value, that needs the I bit to press on. Now, unless you can demonstrate that which is summarised in both Boyle's law and the second law of thermodynamics is somehow violated by your fundamentalist religious belief that you live on a sphere, then we have absolutely debunked what you claim in these pictures of Earth curve from a fake medium that cannot exist because it violates Boyle's law and the second law of thermodynamics. So, unless you've got a rebuttal other than claiming that I haven't debunked it, it's been smashed, mate.
No, Nathan, what you've said is that the second law of thermodynamics and Boyle's law prove that it can't happen. You haven't actually done that. You just claimed
yes, I have. That's correct.
And Nathan, with his mic volume turned up higher than everyone else's, starts stomping over Randall and ignoring what Randall is actually saying, which is that Nathan has asserted something but not proven it.
That's correct. I have proven it. Why are you making this baseless assertion, dickhead? Right, I'm tired of it. I'm getting sick of it. I have proven it with your own words. When I asked you to detail what the I bit was, and you stammered and pissed around until you eventually pointed out that when it comes to your scuba diver example, your example...
And Oakley boy is triggered. But did you notice? He said, your example, your example. I think you'll find it was 10th man's example.
It's got a container that you can get the PSI value from. So your own example smashes your claim of a fundy sky vacuum into the middle of next week. I have demolished it. Yeah? Now, unless you're going to tell me that, well, you haven't demolished it on my begging the question fallacy, planetary system, then I'll just laugh at you.
Then laugh away, Nathan.
Probably the best thing you could have said, Randall.
Well, do it first. Tell me that I haven't debunked that it can't work in your begging the question fallacy reification model.
Not begging the question, not reification.
You said the word planet.
Yeah,
Let's just shut this dick up again.
Red alert, red alert, red alert, red alert.
Oh, we don't need to. The ones you claim came from a space agency. Space being a vacuum. Well, that's not possible. So everything they produce or claim ever is automatically, instantaneously, bunk.
So Nathan will ignore any and all evidence that comes from NASA and other space agencies. Great.
Which is completely not true, Nathan, but okay.
Sorry, they're a space agency. They claim the sky is a vacuum. That's a violation of Boyle's law and the second law of thermodynamics because we have gas. And in order to have gas, it needs a container to press on, the very measurement itself, as denoted by you, PSI, telling us that we need a per inch of something. Like a tank for a scuba diver, that sort of thing. So I instantaneously know that we've got gas pressure and therefore the necessary antecedent must be in play.
And I instantaneously know that if I hear Nathan Oakley, I know he's talking total
Now, the fundies that claim they've got a space agency say there is nothing for the gas to press on. It's just magically staying here.
No, that would be gravity, Nathan. Gravity.
In fact, they look down on it in the bullshit pictures they present. They look down on the gas pressure not escaping into the vacuum, violating the second law. The people producing those pictures are laughing at you. They know it's complete nonsense. It couldn't possibly be real. They know it's all CGI bullshit that they've just put together in Photoshop. But you claim that it's real, even though it violates several natural laws.
Nathan, if they were laughing about that, I don't think that they would be engineers spending their entire lives trying to figure out how to get to space. And what you haven't done is actually ever explained what that second law actually says, how we know it works, and under what conditions it's a relevant factor in actually describing our world.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, it's a natural law that would describe high energy going to low energy, hot to cold. Entropy, in essence, that's what it's describing. And with gas, yeah, something that's freely moving in all directions with no bonds, that means that if you have an endless void called a vacuum of space, the place these agencies claim to go to, then the gas would fill the space as described in the second law of thermodynamics.
Which it would if there wasn't the aforesaid gravity holding it down.
So it does explain quite simplistically that you can't have gas next to a vacuum. All it wants to do is expand rapidly in all directions until it reaches equilibrium.
And Nathan is right. If we had a pocket of gas at 14.7 psi just appear in the vacuum of space, poof, it would be gone. It would dissipate. But we don't. What do we actually have next to it? Because of the gradient, right next to the vacuum of space, we have almost vacuum. And right next to that, we have a tiny, tiny bit less vacuum. We don't have high pressures right next to ultra low pressures.
Not hang around with a vacuum right next to it. If it was, you wouldn't have any PSI value to measure because you need an I bit. So I've explained this now 5 times to you.
And 5 times you've got it wrong, Nathan.
Are you slow?
Yeah. Nathan, you induced the consequence there. So what you said is, oh, I'm going, because I know that gas pressure goes from high to low, therefore there must not be a pressure gradient, right, from PSI that we experience on sea level to.
No, that's not what I said at all. You've just made that shit up. What I said was your gradient still has an I in it. It still has a PSI value. So it still needs a per inch value to press on. That's how I debunk that shit. Don't put words in my mouth and make up something that I didn't say. I definitely didn't say that if you've got the second law of thermodynamics in play, which you always have, it's a natural law applicable always, that suddenly gas pressure gradients aren't possible. Those words never crossed my lips, my friend. You just made that shit up.
But what you did, Nathan, is that you induced the fact that, oh, it can't exist. Like the idea of a gas pressure gradient that goes to zero.
Oh, so you're just going to repeat the same bullshit that I absolutely did not say? No, I did not say that. That's just bullshit that you've just made up twice.
So are you saying that you can have a pressure gradient from the 14.7 at sea level up to 0? Because in which case, you've got a pressure of 0 next to 0. What's the problem, Nathan?
I'm going to start calling you a liar, because that's a straw man that I did not say. I didn't induce anything. I specifically said that even a gas pressure gradient has still got an I in the PSI.
Okay, so now you are admitting that you can have such a thing as a pressure gradient. Good. And of course, that gradient has a variation of the PSI from whatever it is at the maximum end to the minimum end. The I is the I of whatever you're measuring. So as we said back in my Everest example, or mountain example, your hairy arse at ground level, halfway up the mountain at the top of the mountain, following that gradient, the value of the pressure will be changing per square inch of the Oakley arse.
That's how I debunked that shit 2 times, twice. I've said the same thing. You're going to tell me again that you infer something from I've said? Or give me another straw man? What's next? I didn't say that.
I didn't infer anything, Nathan. You straight up said it's impossible to have a vacuum at the end of a gradient.
Sorry, do you want to put quotes around that shit? Put quotes around it.
And now Arwin pops in to admit that it was him who said that. He actually said it over the top of the other two talking earlier. But good on you, Arwin, for admitting it. However, even though Arwin is quite clearly admitting that he said it, Nathan's going to ignore it and carry on. Trigger.
No, I actually tended to say that, not Nathan.
Sorry, do you want to put quotes around me saying that? So I can call you a liar and a misquoter and untrustworthy and discredit you. Put quotes around what I said.
Comes first, gas
Yeah,
pressure.
I've said that
gas
in the past.
pressure.
Nathan has not.
Alwyn, do you want to put quotes around what you've just claimed I said? Or not?
So when Arwin again says that he said it, Nathan just puts him down so he can carry on his stupid argument.
What do you mean?
I mean, when you say I quote, you have said this, and I haven't, which I haven't, then I want you to say the word quote, then the words I said, then end quote. And if it's wrong, I will be on you like a ton of bricks.
Nice, Nathan. So Randall attributed the words to you in error, although the words were said. Arwin has twice admitted it was him that said it, but all you want to do is carry on and try and put him down. Nice. So nice, mate.
It already seems like you're misquoting me, and I want you to start what you claim is a quote of something I have said with the word quote, and when it's the end of what I have said, say the word end quote. Go.
No, Nathan, I'm not going to have you dictate to me in a debate what I say. No thanks.
No, not what you say, how you quote me. That's how you will quote me. You won't just make shit up that I haven't said. I'm in the middle of telling you off.
What the hell? Nathan, how far up yourself are you? Exactly who do you think you are? Certainly no one that commands or deserves a level of respect.
What you won't do, sir, is just make up a load of shit that I haven't said and claim I've said it. Yeah, I'm not dictating. I'm a reasonable man. And a reasonable man doesn't like stuff being made up about him and then told to him by his opponent that it's a quote, that what I have said is X, when it isn't. So I'm not dictating. I'm saying that it's only reasonable that should you claim I've said something, that you put quote marks around it. That's reasonable behaviour for any normal person who's stating something else that someone has said. That's not a dictation. That's reasonable behaviour, which you're not adhering to. You're just making stuff up that I haven't said, misrepresenting my argument, claiming that you can infer what I've said, that I've made it clear that a vacuum isn't possible next to a gas pressure gradient, even though those words did not cross my lips.
Well, then you strawmanned what the actual claim from those who know that the Earth is a globe is.
Right, okay, let's just bring this back on track. We started this show asking for proof of curvature. You declared that the space agencies, namely NASA, had got pictures. We debunked the medium those pictures claim to come from. Do you have any rebuttal to the debunking based on two natural laws or not?
Yes, the second law of thermodynamics does not state, right, what that a contradiction to the claim that is being made on how the Earth actually is shaped.
Okay, back your claim.
Namely that. What's that?
Now back your claim. You claim second law of thermodynamics does not dictate. Go and back your claim. Prove it. Cite. Give us a citation.
Well, let's hope that Nathan can continue being such a reasonable man. Randall is now going to give us an explanation of the second law of thermodynamics and how that pertains to the gradient of the atmosphere.
Yes. So the change in entropy from one system to another is actually a gradient, which is 100% fine in the law of second law of thermodynamics, right? Mostly because the change in Q, okay, the heat transfer, or you could also say gas pressure transfer from system one to another, from system one to system two, is a gradient and not a value that is 10 apart or something like that.
Like my example of a pocket of atmosphere at 14.7 psi suddenly appearing in vacuum. It doesn't happen, and that's not what we're talking about.
Right, and so
That's
because
another
of that,
story.
the second law of thermodynamics is still in play when as long as the fact that we have a gas pressure that we experience at sea level going up to a grading down to zero.
That's not an argument. That's not a citation. You're saying so long as my fundamentalist belief in space applies and we have a gas pressure gradient, then it's true. What an outrage. That's not an argument. That's not a citation. That's not proving your point. That's just a baseless assertion.
No, it's
More
not a baseless
story time.
assertion, because when I can actually
Your
observe that this gas
interpretation
pressure
of
gradient is
something that you're not actually
excuse me,
quoting.
Arwen, I didn't interrupt you. Excuse me, Arwen. Okay, I didn't interrupt you. Okay, S2 minus S1 equals change of Q over T. That's what the second law of thermodynamics actually says. Okay, so if I have a gas pressure gradient, okay, from S2, which we can say is sea level, minus S1, which is a vacuum, right? If I were to put those next to each other, the second law of thermodynamics would tell me what the change in Q, aka the heat transfer or the gas pressure transfer, would actually be, which is like you would say, and I've heard many on your panel say before, it would suck the atmosphere off of the of the Earth.
So Randall's explaining again that if you had a pressure of 14.7 sea level right next to a vacuum, it would be sucked straight into it or blown straight into it. That's not the end of his argument. He hadn't finished. But does that stop Nathan and little Arwen Lapdog? Oh no.
That's the end of your argument.
No shit, dude.
No
what the
shit.
hell?
Yeah, that's the end of your argument precisely. Yeah, the second law of thermodynamics undoes your fundamentalist religious belief in a sky vacuum. That's correct.
Yeah, you guys just don't interrupt me in the middle of a sentence, right? And also completely ignore what I just said. Unless there is a gradient from S1 to S2 to S1, right? Then of course that it would actually take place. The change in the heat or pressure transfer would be immediate, but there isn't an S1 and S2 next to each other, which is what the second law of thermodynamics actually says. It is a gradient, so there is a change from S1 to S2 that is gradual. Not
You just said there isn't an S1 and an S2. Now you're saying there is an S1 and S2 that's gradual changing. So either there is or there isn't. You've just contradicted yourself. This is a train wreck.
No, he didn't. He said there isn't an S1 and S2 next to each other. There isn't the 14.7 next to a vacuum. Let's just hear what Randall said again, a couple times, and try and drum it into you, Nathan.
Isn't an S1 and S2 next to each other, which isn't an S1 and S2 next to each other, which isn't an S1 and S2 next to each other, which is...
Got that, Nathan? Perhaps you need to keep your mouth shut sometimes and actually listen to what people are saying to you. But I doubt you will.
It's not a train wreck, Nathan. You
Is
just
there
don't
two
know the
different
second law of
systems or not?
thermodynamics.
Is there two different systems? Vacuum system and gas pressure system or not?
There are not two different systems in a gradient. They, by definition, are a gradient. That's not one system next to another. They're systems that you measure at a gradient level, right? So it's not just a point on a dot, it's a line, a curved line on a graph.
Randall, I think you're flogging a dead horse here.
And can you demonstrate this then, please? Now back your assertion with a demonstration of a gas pressure gradient next to a vacuum, please. Can you demonstrate that? Beyond
No
your
problem. So if you
sorry,
go-
just one more caveat. Sorry to interrupt you. One more caveat. Beyond your fundamentalist religious belief about what Earth is, an actual demonstration of that, please. Can you provide that?
Yes, I can.
Excellent,
So
Chris.
if I start, yeah. So if you start here if you take off from, I don't know, New York, something like that, very close to sea level, right? You can actually measure what the gas pressure is. You go up to 5,000 feet, you measure it, and you say, wait a minute, it's lower here. Then you go up to 10,000 feet, wait a minute, it's lower. You get up to 30,000 feet, and you're like, hold up, it's like 10% of what it was at 0 feet. You keep going up 60,000, 70,000, 80,000, right? And you notice that it continues
When
to
did
get less.
you know? Sorry
right?
to
This is
interrupt.
something
Sorry
that
to interrupt.
Nathan,
You
if
say
wanna-
you noticed.
Did you now?
I'm
Did
sorry to
you?
interrupt you. Just one
Nathan,
thing.
I'm
Sorry,
getting on my point
I
right
actually
now.
asked for a
I'm getting on my point
demonstration.
right now.
You're just not stopping, even though I'm deliberately interrupting you because you said you go up to 50, 60, 70, 80,000. So you have done this then.
I'm a pilot, so I've been up to about 52,000 feet.
Booyah!
That's not what you said. You said 60, 70, 80.
Oh, for crying out loud!
So this isn't a demonstration of gas pressure next to a vacuum then?
Oh, so you want to continue to put caveats on it?
Sorry,
and say
you
that,
have... listen
just-
up. You have claimed that it is possible to have precisely what your fundamentalist religious belief in a sphere Earth is, which is a gas pressure gradient next to a vacuum. I have asked you to demonstrate this. Now, you're just expressing your fundamentalist belief that requires we extrapolate beyond your experience, not to demonstration, not something that you've even done yourself. So this is not what I have asked for. You have declared we can have a gas pressure gradient next to a vacuum. I'm asking you to demonstrate it beyond your fundy belief. I put that caveat in before you started. That's why I interrupted, to clarify that indeed this is your belief about what happens beyond 58,000 feet, isn't it? Not something you've applied, not something you can demonstrate, not something you've done, just your fundy belief.
Flat Earth, Nathan. Not something you can apply, not something you can demonstrate, not something you've done, just your funny belief.
That's why I interrupted you. So I'll say it again.
So-
I'll say it again
I'll
because
interrupt
it
you.
wasn't
I'll
listened to
interrupt
the
you at this
first
point.
time.
Trigger time, Nathan.
I'll say it again calmly because he just won't interrupt. He'll keep doing it because he doesn't want to answer the actual question. I am asking for a demonstration of what you declare is possible. Gas pressure gradient next to a vacuum, without using your fundamentalist religious belief. Go. Let's summarise again. I'm waiting so I can get a no from you. We all know this natural law still holds true, and you will never demonstrate entropy not taking hold and gas not randomly expanding into the vacuum. You will not ever demonstrate this. But that's what you're claiming is possible, and I want you to say no. Beyond my fundy belief about what the sky does, I can't demonstrate this violation of a natural law. So, are you going to concede?
I've already completely destroyed the fact that you think that this is a natural law violation. I've showed you that it's not a natural law violation.
No, you haven't.
With the simple S2 and S1. You don't even know anything. You don't even know the
Oh,
equation.
we already established that S1 and S2 don't exist in your system.
Again,
Isn't an S1 and S2 next to each other, which isn't an S1 and S2 next to each other, which isn't an S1 and S2 next to each other, which is.
have you got it yet, Nathan? He didn't say there isn't an S1 and S2. He said there isn't an S1 and S2 next to each other.
That's why I've said in a single system with a gradient and a gas pressure next to a vacuum. So I don't care how you define it. It doesn't make any difference to me. I want a demonstration. Do you have one or not?
Yeah.
What's
I
your
have plenty
demonstration?
of demonstrations.
No, you gave us a fundy belief about what the sky does.
And some more trigger.
Okay, would you like
Is that a no
an actual
then? So
barometer?
would you like, meaning,
Hey,
oh right, yes,
Nathan.
I did indeed express my fundy belief about what the sky does. I just expressed what I believed was beyond where I'd been. Yeah? Now you want to move on to something else? No, dick brain. I'm tired of this. I want you to concede. No, you can't demonstrate it.
Now you want to move on to something else? No dick brain? But you just asked him for it, Nathan. Let's just hear what you just asked moments ago.
I want a demonstration. Do you have one or not? I want a demonstration. Do you have one or not? I want a demonstration. Do you have one or not?
Perhaps you need to keep track on what you say as well.
Would you accept a barometer hooked to the side of a spaceship that's actually going from pressure to non-pressure?
Sorry, this is what we're
Would you accept
debunking.
that?
We are debunking this. You are claiming it is possible to have a violation of a natural law that entropy wouldn't take hold with gas pressure gradients next to a vacuum. And now you're asking me if a barometer from the very people who claim this bullshit would be sufficient. No, I know that they are in violation of a natural law. And until you can show me a demonstration that violates that law...
You said that I misquoted you.
am I being
did not-
muted? Oh, it seems I'm being muted now. It doesn't just feel like I'm being muted. The globe head mute button's being used now. You're talking all over me.
And how does that feel, Mr. Arrogant?
I'm not going to accept
you don't-
people...
you like-
oh, it's the globe head mute button again.
Right,
It's not
okay.
seeming like I'm being muted. It's definitely globe head mute button being used. So I'm not going to accept people who claim to violate a natural law's explanation with a barometer attached to the side of their shuttle that they claim goes to this violation of a natural law. It's still a natural
You
law.
don't actually want to.
I'm still talking, and the globe head mute button's going to continue, isn't it? Because this smashes your argument. You want to stay here indefinitely, and I don't mind. I don't mind staying here indefinitely, pointing out that the gas would fill the space, that entropy would increase if there's nothing to press upon, that the claimed region of the vacuum of the sky that you believe fades beyond that 10% of what's at sea level to a vacuum, your belief means nothing. So, this is smashed. The sky is not a vacuum. There is no demonstration of the sky being a vacuum beyond your fundy belief. There's no demonstrations that violate Boyle's law. There's no demonstrations that violate the second law of thermodynamics. These natural laws are still natural laws, never to be violated. If they were, they wouldn't be natural laws. But this fundy says, no, I go up to 58,000 feet, and I believe that if I keep going, it turns into a vacuum.
So if the air pressure has been dropping at a steady rate, what do you think is going to happen as you get higher and higher? Is it going to suddenly tail off and remain at, say, £1 per square inch for no readily apparent reason? Or are you saying that there is a dome In which case, why is there a gradient at all?
Well, good for you, Fundy. Your belief you can keep. It does not hold true.
Can you show me what the S2 and S1 is in the second law of thermodynamics, Nathan?
Why, according to you, there isn't them.
Surely you don't want me to repeat what Randall said again, Nathan?
So who cares? So can you give us a demonstration then, please?
Yeah, sure. I gave you 2 examples of what we can do to demonstrate it, and you rejected them.
Sorry.
Those are
Just be willing-
explanations. I'm
Go ahead,
sorry. Those
Paul.
are explanations, not demonstrations. Demonstrate, please.
So
Demonstrate.
the first one we said we can actually observe the pressure gradient. Second thing is that we can actually put, like, here, I'll just keep some more. We could put a camera on something that goes from pressure to non-pressure. We could look for testimony of people who have gone from pressure to non-pressure. We could put a barometer on the outside of one of these things that they say is a spaceship, because I'm equally as skeptical as they're like, okay, so show me metrically how you actually do this. We could.
Oh God, we've heard all this crap. I've heard it all before. We've heard it. We've smashed every single point. Yeah, we're not going to take and affirm the consequent from the people who claim that they're going to a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. You're claiming it, and we want you to demonstrate it, not take the word of your priests.
No, Nathan, here's the deal.
Gradient
You
in a
ask
small
for a
scale as
demonstration.
well.
All
Okay.
the things that we do, if you don't like them, there's a big difference between Nathan not liking them and they actually being valid things that we can observe, measure,
It's not
and then
valid.
actually
It's a straw man.
And they all start talking over him. And I think it was about this point Randall finally had enough and cleared out. And I do not blame him in the slightest. But then, just at the very last moment, Arwin chips in with this little peach.
You can have a gas pressure gradient within a small container as well. It's a total straw man. A gradient requires gas pressure. Gas pressure requires a container. Get over it.
So apparently you can have a gradient in a small container. Quite how, I don't know. But they seem to have this big problem with a gradient from just 14.7 pounds per square inch over 120, 150,000 feet or whatever it is, down to 0. Go figure. Hey, they're flat earthers. Anyway, thank you very much for spending all this time watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed me picking it to bits. It was quite painful watching. If you haven't watched one before, I suggest you probably don't. Nathan Oakley is not the most pleasant of chaps, and him and his friends holding their mass debate is probably a waste of time. I would like to ask you to look out for a teaser that I'll be launching soon. A teaser for the takedown of another big name flat earther using dairy products. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to me, Mr. Sensible. Just click the little ball down in the corner. Until next time, stay sensible.
Shut up and sit down.